Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And this episode is an experiment which I do in between seasons for water expands upon cooling. And this is a cold case from year 1989. So what I do, I'm going to invite on Venus and Moon, which is Lords of Hour and Evening. So Moon, Lord of Hour, Venus, Lord of Evening. Yes, I might further elaborate. And I use talisman involving this, which I discussed in other episodes. So the experiment is basically me looking at the natal, at the current chart of the time where I'm exposed to the cold case. So whether it goes up in my feed or I hear about this and so on and so forth, is something I began to do with one of the last episodes of Water Expands Upon Cooling Season 1. And right now I'm doing this again. So for the case, it was 19 years old. Yes, woman. That was basically murdered. And we don't know, we have nothing about this. It's from the Other Face Foundation, which you can look up. What the chart was when I ran into this case. So first of all, ascendant on 11 degree Taurus with the lot of fortune 14 degrees Taurus. And this would mean Venus is ruler of ascendant, with Venus being right now in Libra, approaching Ketu and Lilith, which tells me is very fated that I see this case. 11 degree can be associated with events such as electricity, yes, also what people call suicide, or self-mord. I'm not saying it was, it can be associated. And there was a question about the case whether it was related to sexual boundary violation. Unfortunately, I can tell immediately. One thing I dealt with is please all triggers apply for my episodes in general, especially these. I felt energy coming from kind of like the backside of the body that I had to block, and I wondered if this is the case. Immediately I said something to do. The middle decan of Taurus is decan to do with will and consent. 11 degree has to do with electricity or suicide. I'm not saying this what happened, okay? It's just the omens that appear around this. A lot of fortune, 14 degrees. Again, very adjacent to my sun, so it's very fated for me, the astrologer, to look at this case. And so that is one signification that had to do with perhaps success or shine. But no, here is perhaps balance of work and rest. So it could be something to do with work. It could be something to do with success. I guess perhaps this person was successful in some way, even if they don't have sun or anything on this decan. And it's possible that something to do with their success, or that needed to rest, okay, should not work too hard. I don't know exactly what the line of business were, but definitely deacon of success, deacon of will and consent, okay, balancing of attraction and boundaries. And Venus, that she's so close right now to, first of all, Venus is on fixed star Zendaya, which is to do with a situation where a person is either forced to or compromising for themselves, can have to do with sexual boundary violation to either coercion or trauma, and is actually where we had eclipse. Yes, before eclipse, solar eclipse in Aries, we had eclipse where we were with Ketu in 5 degrees Libra. We're letting go of the situations of lack of willing consent, not just sexually, but with our actions. And right now, this 5-degree Venus is applying for Ketu, 7 degrees, that is right conjoining with Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, and this is extra themes of purging rape, okay, purging rape traumas. So, yes, it's not impossible for something to do with along the lines of violation of boundaries of willing consent, which can be anywhere along the lines of this, and a suicide because of this. Now I understand why I am the astrologer that does it. Oh God. Okay. And why am I laughing? This trauma response, but it's because if you've been watching my Instagram, I have been discussing, Pedal de Vries Foundation, of course, the cold cases, and regarding one of the cases came a book that says A Murder Costs More Lives, which I talk about in other episodes, the Peter Ortega case. There's also issue, okay, so girl was 90, there's also issue where she was not minor, but when unfortunately, yes, the rape happens to boys is discussed, or satanic ritual happens to boys is discussed, but when happened to girls, not so much discussed in Netherlands. So I'm not saying that that was necessarily the case, but recently on Instagram, I've been talking about war crimes and so on. I talk about also a murder of the soul costs more lives, and look, I cannot tell you for sure this is the case, but Ascendant clearly shows for me that that some sort of either electrocution or self-mord could have occurred in juxtaposition with events of lack of willing consent being purged. Okay, so perhaps you're seeking to purge such trauma. That being said, Mercury, which is not involved with ruler of hour and ruler of night, okay, it's Venus night right now, not moon night, which you would see on the episode, but Venus night, moon hour. The moon is right now applying to begin new moon in Virgo. So this is a deep closure that I was not seeing coming. Okay, I was not seeing coming to many things, but moon is in Virgo. The ruler is indeed Mercury, and moon is applying to Sun, and Mercury is in this Leo. For Taurus ascendant, okay, so that means Scorpio 7th house and Libra 6th house. So Venus is with Lilith and all that in 6th house, and indeed 6th house is house of work, but also open enemies and also health. Yes, importance of willing consent to health, to work. Moon hour can bring issue perhaps to do with mothering a pregnancy. I'm not saying this was the case, It's not something to consider. Virgo would be 5th house. Moon is in the 5th house. It's about to be new moon in the 5th house. So this deep closure, new cycle about to begin this cycle. And in 5th house is extra importance on children. She was 19 years old, so she's not minor, okay? But it can be she got pregnant due to something that was lack of willing consent, and then even for process, I know people who went through process to abort, and very likely she couldn't talk about this with anyone. And the ruler of this moon is in 4th house, 22 degree, with the sun in 5th house. So this connection between the 4th and 5th. 4th house, yes, is also grave, but it's also our housing. So I don't know if she was alone in the house and committed suicide, but then you would see something to do with it. You would definitely see the body, right? I know she owned 30,000 euros back then. I don't know how 89 is. It's the equivalent of 30,000 euros, probably Hilden back then. So there's connection with and housing, but can also be motherland or fatherland. Okay. Oh, yes, Mercury 22 in Leo. Leo is ruled for entertainment, for leaders, for father figure. Not saying that forbid that parent did this, no. And Leo in 5th. Okay, the sun in the 5th. Leo 4th house, sun in the 5th, with the ruler of sun, Mercury, in the 4th, 22 degree. Yes, this is also for why I dedicate this episode to Mercury 22 degree. Trining Chiron 22 degrees Aries. So for Taurus ascendant, this Chiron is in the 12th house. 12th house can mean hospitals, asylums, okay? And so it is possible for this person, yes, to have been in situation where they got pregnant as a result of sexual boundary violation, where and Mercury also rules children, and if they were self-murder, okay, if they were killing themselves, that they would be also killing for the baby. So they wanted to take their life and the baby's life as a result of a murder. My God, no. Oh my God, no. Also, a murder of the soul costs more life. I did not expect this to. Oh my God, no. But this is, and you see that the 6th house Virgo. No, sorry, the 6th house would not be Virgo. Here would be Libra. Is giving Aries 12th house, so they needed sovereignty. Aries 12th house is mental health. Aries is sovereignty, independence. Right now Mars is in Gemini, which would be 2nd house, self-value for the chart, and is squaring Neptune, which can give both trying very hard, but result fated. It can be giving experience of defeat. A self-value feeling defeated, sovereignty feeling defeated, and understanding is not good for baby to be born like this, and self-murder perhaps as result of this defeat. And so the housing can be here. The 4th house Leo is very clearly can be that the mother, because she committed suicide, then the baby inside is murdered. And because of some event to do with sexual boundary violation. So this is telling me she was being kind of her own doctor, okay? Kind of her own tending to her health. She was in position where she was her own enemy to her life, not because she was enemy to her life, but because the will and consent here was not granted, and the way to get the most closest to will and consent, and unfortunately closest to success, because in these cases can feel defeat, can feel failure, then was act of suicide, and the child inside. Now, I don't know, it can be that she just found out, she maybe went to the bathroom and then, which is possible, cause some place where she would be close, or went to the bedroom, maybe she had bathroom in the bedroom, something like this, and she saw, okay, I'm pregnant. And it could be even before, okay, so we don't know if, but it makes sense that this Mercury is very likely the child, and this happens in the house. So it can be that she took, I don't know how self-mord was done here. Venus, ruler of ascendant, is in 6th house, and Venus, Libra, rules kidneys. So I'm not sure for what. Is Jason to Ketu, so something she wanted to purge something, or can be even tried to commit abortion, or try to commit abortion and then died because of, maybe for the way, but I feel it's very likely because of the lack of a will and consent. She says, I'm going to unalive the self because sovereignty lost, and not healthy physically, cannot be healthy birthing when sovereignty lost, and as a result of this act, a baby murdered. Okay, baby not yet maybe existing. Okay, so even if you find body, you may not know if she was pregnant or not pregnant. I have to admit, I was not expecting this. I don't know why the house, because I don't know where for the body found. Why the house? No, it can be that she took something and then she went out of the house, because upon acts of a suicide, we often see, you know, I use, you know, my mantra is no such thing as suicide and so on, because of the lack of will and consent. It's a very Hobbesianic choice and not a full choice, but it's also degree of choice, because here was attempt to regain a sovereignty and to regain choice, and to yes, not even to say no, for to regain choice. Why is it saying that? Because Jupiter is in another. Jupiter is in the 2nd house right now of self-value. Jupiter is choice. Mars is acting on this choice. Jupiter is choice, and Jupiter also in Mercury sign. Mars also in Mercury sign, and is 22 Mercury. Another thing that can occur is that something to do with her house, because found out she was either went through rape, or maybe they thought it was not rape, and because of something with children, is the child is this or that, then lover could have murdered her in house. And a lover may be a person that is like date rape, may be someone who wanted her to be lover, may be someone she was dating. Okay, and if it was husband, I'm not saying, God forbid, that this is case, but that would be given a murder suicide, because I also see 11th degree. So, or they try to make for it to look like suicide, but then I would not see 11th degree unless they would try to force the person to commit act of suicide, and then there's no such thing as suicide. So both of these possibilities are possible. That maybe someone she was dating. 5th house can be lover. She did not have children. She was 19 herself. So yes, because home and to do with the sun. Yes, on other occasions, if let's say she was having bad connection with father, then I would raise this option. But the definitely has something to do with will and consent. Either she killed herself, and as a result of it would kill a possible baby, or she was murdered in a way where she was forced to kill herself. Okay, so lover could have been yes, but and this Mercury rules for second house because of money, but second house is self-value, so I don't understand for what would necessarily be the motive. Moon is about to meet Sun, so it can be something to do with union of a house and fifth house. Yes, because it was not brought to me as case where there was incest, so I don't associate this type of connection between fifth house and fourth house. Other cases where there was incest, that can be okay. And fourth house, another thing could be school, but I don't think that is the situation here. Somebody literally, very literally, either tried to kill her joy, or apparently that she found that she's pregnant, and before anything could be seen outside, decided to kill herself and the baby. Because it's moon hour, associate it with more the option around fertility, because it's Venus hour, so it can be relationship, but ascendant 11th degree and the Venus and so many significations of the issues of will and consent, and both Mercury rules children and fertility, is definitely both Venus, but also the moon, and moon hour on a Venus night is given that she was very likely, as a result of such things, pregnant. Moon about to meet Sun right now, so that can give us closure to something that was behind for this case. This is experiment, and I want to set the tone straight. Mercury is in shade period, but with the context that this comes, with the context that I reach this case, with the context that also murder of soul costs more lives, with the context of this chart and so many significations of rape, I'm sorry, yes, either various degrees of sexual boundary violation, whether it's through her job, maybe she was a sex worker, or it was for money, had to be raped in a way. Maybe for housing, I don't know if it was for rent or something like that. There's something going on here. It can also be landlord, but something going on here, and is very likely there's so many omens. So, okay, so the context of me watching this in this one, and the Mercury that going over the themes of when I say also murder of soul costs more lives, and the topic of willing consent is very, very obvious why me with Sun just 1 degree away from the lot of fortune right now is covering for this cold case. I'm going to put a link for the cold case, so if you have, it's in Dutch, Peter R. de Vries Foundation. If you have any tips, and they don't accept the tips like astrology or channeling or like this, they want, if people, if you live in Netherlands, if you lived back then, okay, 1989, if you know some concrete tip that can advance the interrogation, then there's also there's also ability to go to the foundation and to assist in that. I think there's some compensation for that if you do that. So this is experimental, okay, and I'm using technique that is very reminding of horary. It's not horary astrology. I call this horary, but it's not horary astrology. It's looking at when I see the cold case, and when I see the cold case, why is it appearing now, and the themes that appear now are reoccurring and allowing us to solve this case. So all of these things may be possible now. how could this lead to concrete tips for to find her? First of all, we need to know if she was pregnant or not. I think now it's not possible. It says that it's suspicious that was sexual misbruik, okay, so sexual violence. The whole thing involved her being in the house. So, and she may have gone out of the house to a fifth house location, something she did for hobby. Now, ascendant in this reading would be media astrologer, running into this case right now. This would represent also media astrologer. But young woman can also be, but this Venus, which is the recurring theme, and the Venus 6th house Libra. 6th house Libra with Lilith and Ketu, she could be working in profession that has to do with beauty or with sexuality. Venus is leaving opposition to Neptune. So there could be something to do with, yes, drugs, not necessarily she was willingly working for drugs cartel or anything like that, but there was some opposition between her line of work and drugs. Anything more that could lead to concrete tips from here? I would need to look deeper into for this chart, or to maybe to cast horary for specific questions. Neptune, okay, because this is giving Neptune time. Yes, this is giving Neptune time. And we're gonna have eclipses to do with Pisces, but here I feel that this is still the shade of the lunar eclipse we had with next to fixed star Zendaya, but Ketu was next to Zendaya. Lilith right now with Ketu, we're purging themes of law. I know topic of lover boy, which is recruitment to sex trafficking, came up with the Tristan and Andrew Tate also came up. So this movie came out called Loverboy in the Netherlands. The Tristan and Andrew Tate were also involved with the Party for Democracy and Freedom. So yeah, they were giving interviews. At least Tristan Tate was giving interviews there. So this is yes, Forum for Democracy. So this theme is coming up now for Netherlands. And this is the Neptune theme. Okay, so the Neptune theme of the non-consensual sex trafficking with drugs, with spying, with healthcare system, all things Neptune. Neptune on a erratic degree of Pisces. So I want you to think WHO, but I also want to think drug cartels and sex trafficking cartels. Neptune is also liquid assets, and here can be to do with real estate. And Moon can be housing here. Okay, but fifth house, housing, entertainment, I don't know. Those themes around are themes where this cold case is just one study case of. So for concrete tips is you have to go for look for Neptune. Neptune is your go-to planet, and both Mars squares Neptune, so feeling of defeat for the self-value, through these activities for WHO, for healthcare system. And if indeed the case was she understood she's pregnant and she cannot have access to care, giving, to abortion, or it would create problems with family, with home, or with lover, or with work even, and she reached kind of like a dead end, or she couldn't get care for her mental health, because in the mental health areas there's no sovereignty for her, for self-value. Housing first, open dialogue. This is why I am the astrologer that covers this case, if this is true. Okay, I'm not saying for yes, but this is why I see this. This is why I see this now. And so the things we should be looking for is mental health and sovereignty areas within mental health system, a sovereignty of the patient, sovereignty of woman or right of her body, okay, of a person with womb of her body, both sexually and in terms of a pregnancy. And the fact that also murder of the soul costs more life. So this person that self-value felt defeated for this Neptune issue. And the Neptune is in Pisces in 11th house, which is the agenda. As activism, as goals and dreams. This is where a Neptune right now is basically for the agenda of all things Neptune. The social agenda, addiction, a social agenda, okay, drugs, addiction, isolation, spies, mystery, yes, and Chiron 22 degree is Andromeda, because for this woman to go to get help, to say, I went through so and so, this would violate sovereignty, which would undermine her healing. Sure, she did what she could do to preserve the sovereignty, and that was a self-murder. Why? Because she would be forced to drugs again. Self-value. Could be she even tried to end addiction. And maybe was even successful, but then this rape happened. And if she would go to get help, what would be? Take this pill, take that pill. If you don't agree, there's injection. Although, housing first, an open dialogue. The open dialogue was developed in Netherlands. And you see Neptune, 11th house, is very, very strongly indicating that there is a social activism needing to be done around Neptune themes. And this is psychiatry, drug cartels, what people call big pharma, but also channeling, espionage, things going missing people, and so on. Chiron 22, she would feel kidnapped it's on Andromeda. She would feel kidnapped, and that would bring, and she would not be able to kill herself even. And that would make her self-value be defeated, to put her back in drugs. So I want to end this. Also, I want you to know spiritually, and this is teaching of Tom Jacobs, ttjacobs.com, suicide prevention, okay? Or teachings on suicide. And this is where the teaching, if the native commits a suicide in order to regain sovereignty or take control over their life, they don't have all of these things where like they have to reincarnate, they have to go through this again, they have to this. No. So I want you to know that for those who care about it spiritually, for the teaching, for case like this, that the suicide committing was, oh God, a suicide commitment, if this was the case, is such that no, she did not go through horrid complications or have to be forced to incarnate to go this again. No, not at all, because she liberated herself from the system that was oppressive, both the health system, the job system, and the mental care, health care, even though open dialogue with drug-free approach was in Netherlands, they would force drugs on her. Okay, you see Mars here, ruler of the 12th, into the second house, which is values, in defeat with this Neptune on the anaretic degree, 11th degree, okay? So is to touch on all of these topics together. all in one. In this case, I see when Moon is about to meet, and this probably will be published by the time it's published and uploaded. This can be new moon in Virgo, a sign of health, mind you. And why is this case showing up? Also, Neptune is kind of like a message in a bottle showing up. This has to do also with the broadcasters, why I am the one broadcasting this episode. I was dealing a lot with the topic of people who committed suicide. And in Netherlands, you have ability to have assisted suicide for mental health. Most cases were for incest. I'm not saying this was case of incest, was for... And again, housing first, when it takes a person, gives it sovereignty. To say, yes, if you want within community, okay. But if you want not within community, also okay, which is important. So why you need housing first. So, and this is not using the case for my agenda. This is looking at cases and see what emanates from there and knowing, okay, what could be solution? This could be solution, this could be solution. But definitely not to put her back in the trauma, force her back in the drugs, and take a sovereignty and perpetuate the rape. Okay? So what? A murder of soul costs more lives as well. And you see how this would be intergenerational, because if this baby would be born from rape, they're born with intergenerational trauma of feeling defeated with the life energy. Okay, so she wanted to save both her and her child from that. If indeed she is pregnant. Or could be lover that didn't want to be exposed. But anyway, for her, okay, the Aries here with the Mars. So it can either be lover and they want to be exposed. The defeat would be in the bedroom associated, and then she would be forced to take drugs. There's actually, like I said, there's no such thing as suicide. But the other is that indeed she was pregnant because of rape. Okay, so both scenarios are here possible. And both have to do with the state of affairs, because this situation is not particularly Saturnian. Okay, so it's not like right now, Sun is not yet opposite Saturn. So it's not like, I would say, taxation or government, although they could be fighting, okay, there could be a bedroom fight that had to do with values, or even, yes, but I don't necessarily think it's for money. More, I think that it's not boyfriend or lover that killed her in the house and then forced her to commit suicide, but something to do with work. Okay, so she had to, the money issue was more about work, but it's not, so the money issues, it was sexual trauma. And sexual trauma as child that may have even occurred at home, not necessarily by the parents, but can be when the parents weren't there, or maybe left her with someone who maybe was supposed to take care of her, caregiver, okay, was supposed to caregive for the children and something like that, and something happened there that would instigate for this career or this path, okay, that for line of work to have to do with the sexuality here. Neptune, yes, Mercury 22 can also be some expendable children, but again, she was 19 years old, so it's not expendable children necessarily. No, it's not expendable. She was not a child, but more likely, okay, for the scenario I gave here. And this will tell me that for have concrete tips, you would have to tend to the topics of Neptune: addiction, espionage, sovereignty of mental health patients, sovereignty around abortions, okay, I'm not saying I have all answers, but you would have to tend to these topics. Will and consent, big, huge, giant issues. When court system changes around that, both with its verdicts, but we know what the changes of court system need to be. Enough with the snuff films, okay? Okay, parcels. I said what I said. That is necessary for, and when we do this, we're gonna go on a line of cases like this case would be falling into place. Okay, we'll be solving not one cold case, but we will be solving line of cold cases. Because I have both a Mars here, squaring Neptune, applied aspect, is the most important here, then the sovereignty, where Aries is, and the healing of the Chiron 22 wound. She would very likely also be murdered in settings of like mental hospital, okay? It's also the wound we are tending to right now with this chart. So, and Venus separates from opposition to this Neptune. Big Neptune, huge Neptune. As Gen Z would say, it's given Neptune. So you want to tend to all things Neptune. Also, for channeling psychic abilities, okay? You would need, for Neptune themes, you would need to use a Neptune techniques. It's not going to be, you're not going to get concrete tips for all the cases without using a Neptune techniques. Yes, channeling would be needed. And for Neptune, yes, it's possible. So, yes, by the way, I also have ascendant 24 Pisces, which is a couple of degrees from where Neptune is right now. So yet another signification that I'm the astrologer and somewhat channeler who gives this cold case. Wow, I wasn't expecting this. And Uranus is on Beta Persei, which is also, okay, where Uranus is stationed to go retrograde on Beta Persei, 1 degree away from Beta Persei. This also tells me, and this is good phase of Beta Persei, is good phase of Algol, and this also another signification of both will and consent and the housing first open dialogue to treat what people call psychosis after traumas like this, and to believe victim. All of this, so many symbolism for that, and yes, it's going to be connected with the lunar eclipse in Pisces, and it's going to be connected with the solar eclipse, yes, in October. But it's already it started with the theme of the lunar eclipse in conjunction to Zendaya, okay, which also brings in the theme of will and consent. Very powerfully, very strongly, Ba'aden Me Too, Ba'aden everything we know, connected to many things. And Uranus rules astrology in the first house, me, astrologer, for giving this reading, and about this case. So basically me, astrologer, tending to this cold case. Yes, this Uranus in the first house. So basically the case is tended to by astrologer. Okay, life path for this thing. I said it's going to be experiment. I don't have a launching date yet, so this is not a season 2 already. But this is, you could consider this as a kind of in between season 1 and season 2 of Water Expands Upon Cooling, where I basically learn and develop techniques to attend to cold cases. And this is very important here, that with Neptune, you must take into account that because such things are involved, we cannot proceed with the same epistemic standards for empiricism, referring again to my thesis proposal. And this is a Larry Loudon term. We cannot expect that the epistemic standards for empiricism that they contributed to creation of this problem in the medicine, in the court system, in liquidating assets and economy, would yield for the solution for the problem that these epistemic standards for empiricism allowed, and why they were the convention. And it was undecipherable for most. Would get another episode. So this episode I'm going to share with a link to the cold case from Peter R. de Vries Foundation. We can find it, it's in Dutch, but with a small Google you can also get the English translation. And if you have concrete tips, you can immediately go to Peter R. de Vries Foundation. But to find concrete tips, you must attend to Neptune. And I gave you for the list of topics of how and what, so that not only this cold case be resolved, but many such cases that we don't have answer to and cannot get concrete evidence of with the epistemic standards for empiricism we have been using so far. Okay, it's not to say that channeling is the ultimate truth and we want to have a bridge, we want to have to find a cave, this, that, but we have to extend for the way we look at the problem, to change the way we look at the problem, to change the perspective, to yield other results and expand our horizons. And such cases is at the line of work, at the frontier of science, which is allowed and ethical to do. So I'll see you for another episode, and take care.